Hey, I'm Warren Sprouse. This is the Bible Forum. We're here every Sunday night from 8 to 10 p.m. waiting for you to show up right here at thebibleforum.net. We look at life through a biblical lens. We solve all the world's problems in 2 hours or less. If you'd like to know what the show is going to be about week to week, you can sign up for my email. I don't send you anything but this, and I only send this out once a week, usually on Saturday, so that you have some idea what the rundown is. And I put a couple of articles on the back, give you a little heads up. Shoot me an email, thebibleforum@gmail.com, and I'll stick you on my list. You got friends you think would be interested? Send me their email too. All they can do is say, I don't want this, and unsubscribe, which they can do very easily. We saw a lot of stuff happen this week on the international stage. We saw Syria, with the aid of Russia, bombing citizens with sarin gas. We saw our president stepping up to slap them in the face and say, wake up, people, this is not what you do in a civilized world. Is God once again punishing Syria for her atrocities against Israel and Christians? She's been in a civil war for the last 6 or 8 years. And while that statement, God punishing them, seems to come right out of left field, it's not really like that, biblically. In the beginning, as these things began to ramp up, we started talking about the apocalypse. We talked, is this the way the world is going to be drawn into this ultimate battle, Armageddon, or whatever you want to call it, in the Middle East? We're not sure. And I'm not the guy that's going to constantly be saying, oh, look, here's signs of the times, and that's this, and that's going to happen. No, we just point to it and say, these are the things that God has talked about. And how they fit in, we're not too sure. But there's a fellow by the name of Avner Bosky. He is connected to something called Final Frontier Ministries. My friend in New York, Vince Morgan, sent me an email where he, in response to what was going on in Syria, wrote a very educated and very systematic background on the events. And he talks about this in terms of the events that are drawing in these major players. He talks about Syria's 20th century history, a history of carnage and destruction. Carnage and destruction pointed at Israel, and of course anybody else who gets in the way. He points to modern Israel and he says this is really the ancient Aram in Bible times, a pre-Abrahamic nation that descended from Noah's son Shem, that this was Shem's 5th son, Genesis chapter 10. That the Arameans, or Syrians, were Semites, as are Jews. But they were not part of Abraham's family. Abraham's few close relatives in Aram were cousins, but they were not Abraham's descendants. However, as it turns out, 11 of Jacob's 12 sons, known as the 12 tribes of Israel, were born in what is now Syria. Shem's Aramean descendants figure prominently in the scriptures as a serious enemy of the Jewish people. The son of Jesse killed 22,000 Aramean foot soldiers in a pitched battle, establishing a military presence in Damascus and throughout Aram, which is now Syria. 1 Chronicles chapter 18. In a subsequent battle with Syria, they tried to join a Middle Eastern confederacy against the Jewish state. King David decisively defeated the Syrians, killing 7,000 charioteers, 40,000 infantry, as well as Aram's military commander. 1 Chronicles 19. Surrounded by a Syrian army, Elisha's servant was given the power to see the chariots of of fire that surrounded this army that surrounded them, saying, "Do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them." After World War II, Syria welcomed Nazis to its country. Alois Brunner, the Holocaust's engineer, was granted Syrian government protection as an advisor. In 1971, he helped Hafez Assad, Bashar Assad's father, come to power in a military coup. In a 1987 telephone interview from Damascus to the daily Chicago Sun-Times, Brunner stated when asked about the Jews, quote, "All of them deserve to die because they were the devil's agents and they are human garbage. I have no regrets and would do it again," end of quote. In his January 29, 2002 State of the Union address, President George W. Bush classified Iran, Iraq, and North Korea as an axis of evil. In May 2002, U.S. Undersecretary of State John Bolton gave a speech titled "Beyond the Axis of Evil," which added Cuba, Libya, and Syria to the list of nations seeking to obtain chemical and biological weapons. It sponsored what is now the Palestinian cause. It was involved in the several wars to drive Israel into the sea. It has attempted to manufacture nuclear weapons. It channels Iranian missiles and other weapons to Hezbollah in Lebanon. It has developed warm relations with Russia, Iran, North Korea. Syria's civil war has claimed 470,000 lives since March of 2011, according to the Syrian Center for Policy Research. An average of 262 deaths per day, 7,860 per month. A death toll that's estimated to be over 520,000 men, women, and children. Assad's brutal dictatorship is being confronted by over 70 different rebel or terrorist or Islamist Salafi groups. Major players like Russia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and ISIS are all vying for influence, power, and control. Israel is watching carefully from the sidelines. My opinion, analysis, I think the Middle East is in flames. Turkey's leader is gathering power. Russia is courting both Erdogan and Assad. Egypt is sidling up to the U.S. Israel is celebrating her 70th year back in the Promised Land, and it's Passover time. Passover marks the first day of Israel's religious calendar. Do you know what day Passover is this year? I believe it's Tuesday of this week. We'll look at it a little bit later in the show. Passover marks the beginning of their year. This year, the beginning of the 70th year in the land, is a Sabbath year. Now, I don't know, and I don't think anybody has ever said that just because Israel was in the land for 69 years, that this is a Sabbath year, the 70th year. You have to go back to Exodus and do the math. But in a sense, that's exactly what it is. And the number 70 is significant in Jewish thought and history. 70 has a sacred meaning in the Bible. It's made up of the factors of two perfect numbers, 7 representing perfection and 10 representing the completeness and God's law. It can also represent a period of judgment. 70 elders were appointed by Moses in Numbers chapter 11. After reading the covenant God gave him to read to the people, Moses took 70 elders along with Aaron and his sons up Mount Sinai to have a special meal with God himself. Exodus 24. Ancient Israel spent a total number of 70 years in captivity in Babylon. Jeremiah 29. 70 is also specially connected with Jerusalem. The city kept 70 years of Sabbaths while Judah was in Babylon captivity. 77s, 490 years, were determined upon Jerusalem for it to complete its transgressions, to make an end for sins and for everlasting righteousness, to enter into it. Daniel chapter 9. Those 490 years have not yet been completed. So it's been a lot more than 490. The clock stopped when Jesus died. We're in a parenthetical moment here. There are still 7 more years to be determined upon Israel before it's complete. We're talking the Great Tribulation. Terah, the father of Abraham, who was not his oldest son, had his first male child at 70. Canaan, the 4th biblical patriarch mentioned in Scripture, had his first son at age 70. Israel and Egypt had its beginnings with Joseph rising in power in Pharaoh's court and Jacob migrating his entire household into that land. A total of 70 Israelites started a nation within another nation that would grow to more than 2 million by the time of the Exodus. 70 elders, not counting the high priest, composed Israel's great tribunal. Exodus 24, Numbers 11, which was eventually called the Sanhedrin. It was this body of elders that hated Christ so much that they were the driving force in the New Testament to have Jesus killed by whatever means available, by betrayal, by lying witnesses, by false accusations, by lying to the Romans that he somehow broke Roman law. 70 disciples were sent out by Christ on a training mission to preach the gospel to the surrounding area, Luke chapter 10. The Bible records Jesus Christ giving at least 70 parables during his ministry. Israel today is in the line of fire. Her neighbors don't want her there. Muslim fundamentalists are once again on the march. Syria is actively seeking to destroy Israel. Russia is supporting Syria, seeking a Mediterranean influence. Europe is reeling from the fallout, crumbling under the weight of Muslim refugees. The United States is starting to take an active notice. Will it be a leveling force? The events of this week, with our Navy attacking a Syrian airfield, the airfield they used to attack their own people with sarin gas. They saw fit, we saw fit, to take a proactive role in this. Will we do more? Is this the beginning of some grander scheme? Even the Saudis, the Europeans, Egyptians, and many lesser nations are expressing approval of what the United States did. Iran, Russia, North Korea, extreme Islam, and China are on the other side, although China has made no comment. Her supreme leader was in the U.S. this week, and he and the Donald had talks about this sort of thing. North Korea is the wild card. But we have U.S. forces in South Korea. We have beefed them up in recent weeks and months, and they are now training, as they say, every day for conflict with North Korea. There's a battle group that's on its way from Shanghai, China, to the North Korean area, or South Korean area, I should say. Watch this week and the weeks to come for the North Korean leader, supreme leader, to start blustering and threatening if that thing gets close. In any case, the standoff in the Middle East has been breached, and no one knows where any of this is going to lead. But it is very certain that our world is about to change again. And while all this is going on, plans are growing to reestablish temple worship in Israel. Passover this year is April 10th, 11th. You know, it starts at sundown, so it's sundown, April 10th throughout April 11th till sundown. So it begins tomorrow evening, Monday, and continues until Tuesday evening. And Resurrection Day, that would be April 13, 14, Thursday at sundown till Friday at sundown. Passover marks the first day of Israel's religious calendar. The 70th year is a Sabbath. We watch and we pray for Jerusalem. They want to build a new temple. We talked about it last week or the week before. They have everything they need. They just don't have a place to put it yet. It belongs on the Temple Mount. That is going to be interesting.